Let's get into this new patch update. It was actually a year ago today when Harbour, of course the agent that has actually turned out to be pretty viable, came into Valorant. Some other ones since then less so, especially Deadlock, and we'll see an interesting update to Deadlock in a second. This was also changed the kill banner audio. I know that some people thought they were going crazy over this, so that's now resolved. Now this I thought was pretty wild though. 2 agent bug fixes. So no necessarily buffs or nerfs, but Deadlock is not particularly good. And yet there are 2 things here for her annihilation that can no longer open Bind's automatic doors from the outside the teleporter rooms, and can no longer open Breeze's mid-shoot trapdoor from below. So 2 relatively minor, but nonetheless nerfs to Deadlock, which is like, well, does Deadlock need any nerfs? And then Neon, the Farsight now more reliably fully extends through Fracture's A door, which is kind of a buff, but it's on a map like Fracture that people don't really play at the moment. So yeah, interesting to say the very least, these 2 agent bug fixes that they're bringing through. Also confirmed in the patch update was this. We know full well that they're putting on these little particle effects when the smoke is 1.5 seconds from disappearing on the Brimstone, on the Astra, on the Omen actually this is, and then on the Astra of course. So yeah, those are the changes that they're trying to make, and they're officially now in the game. It was controversial as we saw the other day. Probably not as big of a deal as some people are making it out to be, but that is now in the game, and maybe there'll be more changes with a similar intention to come. Now, the other big thing that's happening soon is the new agent into the game. Many of the players that flew out there to Los Angeles, Durka I think was one of them, well actually you can see here. Thanks Valorant for inviting me to the playtest for the new agent. Can't wait to show you guys some exclusive content. So as we can see here, right, a couple of games that he plays, match MVP with this new agent it seems in play. This is the new agents. They invited players to this event. I don't know if it was Sadak who leaked this or somebody else, but this screenshot started to go around of ISO. So this is the brand new agent. We can actually see at the bottom here, if you guys kind of look, what his character looks like from this angle, and this is what it looks like from this angle. So, I mean, yeah, it's probably kind of what we expected, right? He's like an E-boy type character. Seems to be kind of like the male version of Jet in some respect. I don't know what you guys think about that, but I think that, okay, he's a duelist, as we can see, ISO, and we don't really know what his abilities are going to be, but I imagine that there's going to be, you know, people who lock in Jet are now going to be locking in ISO. That's kind of what I expect, but yeah, what does it do? We don't really know, but we at least do have a screenshot of the agent, what it's going to look like. Potentially, people are coming up with theories as to what he might end up doing in the game. Obviously, there's already kind of like an anime E-boy agent in Yoru, but he isn't really that good anymore. People don't really use him. So yeah, maybe ISO is going to be the new version of that in some respect, and obviously Com was giving his thoughts on this character and lots of discussion on it. But let's talk about Rostermania stuff, because this continues to be a massive question as to what's happening now. I thought by this time a lot of these rosters would have been decided, but the evil genius's stalemate rolls on. The good thing is that for most of the North American teams, they have found out an alternative to if they can't get the players they want from EG. But one team in NRG might not have done that quite yet. Now, Fnatic also released a Kamek yesterday, who was with them for quite some time. Obviously, he never started for the team, but was a key member of, you know, their roster last season. And he apparently has reached a verbal agreement with JobLive, a French team, to go and play for their Valorant roster. Was one of the options for Carmine Corp, but they decided to go in a different direction. Now, this is Flynn's latest spreadsheet I wanted to dive into here. Few updates on this one. He does this maybe every few days at this point, because nothing crazy is changing, but I'm sure that I think he might put together a tier 2 one at some point, because that's also a big question right now. This is the Pacific, and just to say that Governor, now Governor we thought was maybe going to go, what was it initially, to RRQ, right? Yeah, that was it, but that's not happening. But indeed to Talon is apparently quite likely. So yeah, Talon Governor apparently is going to be a thing, which is kind of wild. Also, Global Esports confirmed Polvi rounding out their team. That was officially announced yesterday. NRG to Team Secret has become more likely. There's also a couple of things to note here, especially in EMEA. Lakia to Gen.G as well is now increasing likelihood somewhat. So yeah, few things going around, but pretty much what we'd have expected. This is EMEA though, and I will say it's kind of cool that this Apex team, so you guys probably know that Apex, APEKS, they were the favourites really to win Ascension going into that grand finals at least. They lost it to Gentle Mates, let's not forget, with Whalers and those guys, but pretty much the entirety of that Apex team team is now getting into the league somewhere. Even Shadow, who was kind of like the other one remaining, is now linked to being quite likely to go to KOI. So that's kind of cool, I guess, that the players that nearly made it are getting signed. But it's kind of unfortunate for Apex, right? Because you'd probably think that, all right, well, the Apex team that did well, you might think, well, we'll keep some of those guys around and run it back. It's kind of like M80 getting all of those guys going into Tier 1. That hasn't happened. Yes, EU and, you know, obviously Gen.G. But apart from that, most of that M80 team is staying together and playing through challenges or playing through Ascension, ideally, again. That's not the case with this Apex team in EMEA. So those are your couple of changes. Narrate and Tomasi, of course, to Carmine Corp. And Narrate was one of the players linked to NRG. That has clearly fallen through. Na'Vi as well. Basically, their team is now confirmed. So that's what's going on there. And this is here in the Americas. So over the last few days, of course, we have seen confirmed Furia, MIBR, Leviathan, Crew Esports, and everything like that. A couple of other changes, though, to, well, EU, increase in likelihood to 100 Thieves. Obviously, Sentinels. Still, they haven't, like, officially... They haven't done an announcement, Sentinels, that says, here's our team of 5, here it is. Zekken 10, Sassy Makata, Gen.G. But they have said that, well, Gen.G joins. They've said that Tens is staying, and, you know, if you put the pieces together, it's pretty obvious what they're doing. So that is, you know, basic. It's confirmed, even though they haven't necessarily said it outright. But where it gets really interesting is this Evil Geniuses stuff. Still, they are in a kind of stalemate situation where Jorgamo is still considered likely to G2 here, but yet EG... It's question marks, nobody knows. These guys are under contract jail, there's no doubt about it. The question is, can they pay enough money, some other teams, to get any of these guys out of contract jail? And as we said yesterday, Boostio is wanted to 100 Thieves. They might have to wait around until January until his contract ends to make that happen, but that opens the door in the meantime to other teams to try and make something happen. So honestly, looking at like the South American teams, the Brazilian teams, they, you know, they're okay because they want players from their respective regions. That's fine. But it's the teams such as 100 Thieves, you know, NRG, G2, and obviously EG themselves, what the hell do they do, that find themselves in a bit of a predicament. NRG, though, especially, because at least G2, they've got a backup plan. If they can't get Jorgamo, they get Leaf. That seems to be how it is, and, you know, that's okay. 100 Thieves, they've got EU in, of course, from M80, because I guess they couldn't get Com or BCJ, maybe they didn't want him, and they've tried to get Boostio, they can't get him, at least for now, so they've got Nature instead. So, you know, okay, Cryo, Asana, EU, bang Nature, you can debate whether you think that team's good or bad or whatever, but still, at least they've got some sort of backup plan, right? The EG thing fell through, so they've got a backup plan. NRG, their initial plan was Aspas Salak, but that's now not happening. Then we were talking about Demon 1 and Ethan, maybe even Stella getting involved over there, and as Victor said on streams, this clip is a few days old now, but given the fact that this spreadsheet came out yesterday and still says the same thing, there's a very good chance that NRG still, as Victor says in this clip here, just have no idea what they're doing, really.
Wait, have you ever sped run the game?
Why are you still in the game? Respect.
Who do you think I am?
Energy roster
have you ever had a
announcement?
world record for speedrunning?
I'm not lying when I say this.
My friend did.
But I had to make sure I was muted. But we don't have a team. Yeah. We actually don't have 5 players.
Yeah. Oh, I heard about that.
Yo.
100.
Yo.
Dead.
Yo,
You guys want to make a team?
I'm down.
Me, you, John. Who else? Who was the other 2?
Crashy's Victor.
Crashy Victor? Us 3,
Calling
Crashy
heaven.
Victor?
Yeah, fam.
Wait.
Hey, bro.
He's
Go
fam.
B, go B.
That's an unstoppable lineup.
Go B, go B, go
If
B.
John listens to me, we're good.
Is that you,
Yeah,
Jimmy?
fam.
Jimmy, do you know Italy's just water?
The game's like
What?
dropping.
Italy?
Italy. What do you mean Italy?
Italy's just water. Italy,
Like the
the
state.
country.
Italy
Country.
what?
State!
What are you talking about Italy? Why are you talking about Italy?
So as Victor says, as of now, at least as of a few days ago, and quite possibly still as of now, they don't have a 5. And, you know, as I said, the other teams, G2, 100 Thieves, they've at least had backup plans they're working with, they're executing on. I don't know what NRG's backup plan is. They talked about Narrate, that's not happening. They talked about other players that no longer happening. Could they get FNS and Sombag? I know that, you know, maybe, but it just doesn't seem very likely. So, yeah, NRG seem a bit of a, well, in a bit of a predicament at the moment, especially when you've got 100 Thieves, you've got Sentinels, they're getting things ready to go. And this is potentially going to give quite a big head start as well. Let's say NRG do manage to get, you know, Ethan, and maybe they get like Demon 1 or somebody else, I don't know, and they can sign these guys from EG at some point. it might be a long time coming. Maybe they just can't even get that done. Maybe they have to settle for players that they really didn't want to get in the first place. They might be forced into. That's the predicament they're in. And even when they do finally decide what they're doing, they're going to be on the back foot anyway, because teams like Sentinels, teams like 100 Thieves, they've started practicing on Monday. Sentinels have been practicing for some time. They've got even a match coming up soon, right? They play on Monday in a show match up against the Moist X Shopify team. So, these guys looking forward to this one, 5k bounty show match type thing. And, they're going to get ready to go. Cloud9, of course, is another team I didn't really mention, but they're out there still, I think, right now in Korea, right? And even Vanity says, I know maybe he's joking around here because he's on the team, but he says C9 hasn't lost a scrim since arriving in Korea. So, Cloud9, they got their roster locked down. They're looking pretty good. They don't have to worry about all this EG drama. And it just makes me think that if I'm looking at the North American teams, I'm looking at Sentinels, definitely. I'm looking at Vanity's Cloud9 as well. Even though I don't think that team is crazy good on paper, they at least have a team, right? And they're at least being able to scrim. They're at least getting some tournament practice under their belt. Whereas NRG, we're a couple of months out now after the World Championship, still don't really know what they're doing, can't get the players they want, maybe trying to wait on Evil Geniuses to resolve their situation, but it's giving them, it's putting them further behind. Now, there's a question as, all right, let's say NRG lock their roster down 4 weeks from now, and it still takes them some time, but eventually they get it. Is there still enough time before the new season to get up to speed? Yes, but it's definitely helpful that teams like Cloud9 and Sentinels can start to play tournaments, start to play show matches, and get some experience that NRG really don't have the option to do because they simply don't yet have a team. And the longer you wait, maybe the less chances the team ends up actually being any good. So very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.